Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me again. It's your boy TeaRon. That's TeaRon, period. And I am coming to you, um, reeling, I should say, or recovering. I don't know what the best word is from my recent visit to Ghana. And let me tell you, a journey was had. A movie was made, if you will. We're gonna get into all of that and more. And I actually have someone from Ghana with me today. So we are revisiting Ghana for the first time in a while. And the person I'm meeting, I did not forgive me in advance. This is me saying this to our guest today, that I did not get to actually meet up with you while I was there because we became aware of each other while I was there. And it's a whole thing. Ghana exhausted me, y'all. Okay. Like truly exhausted me in the best way. So without further ado, I won't drag it out too much because I really want to get into this thing and we'll talk about those recent travels, but we're also going to talk about the importance of digital media, the importance of technology and what it means for countries like Ghana in terms of advancement for future generations. So I want to introduce to you all my new friend here, Ofori. I just like saying that. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people. Let them know who you are, where you're from, what you do, etc.
So hello, my name is Ofori Ankah Kofi. Often I'm visited as OAK, OAK. I'm an entrepreneur and a designer in Accra. I was born in Ghana. I live in Accra. And growing up, I've always had this interest in, learning how things work. I've always had interest in knowing how things work. And I've always been that child that people come to, oh, can you help me with your email? Can you help me with your account? Like, I have this new device. I don't know how to figure it out. Can you help me with that? So I've always had this interest on putting things together and seeing how things work. And that got me into also helping my dad whilst he was trying to make the transition from analog systems into digital. My dad is a photographer, so at some point they wanted to make this transition from analog to digital, where they would use Photoshop and all these other tools to do their work. So I was the only one around that helped them with these things. So I had to learn all these communication tools at that early age. Then I went on to film school, studied about digital communication and film and media and stuff like that. And from there, I went on to do advertisement. So I've been around, digital media and communication for a while now. And that's led me to want to look for people that looks like me. So now what I'm focused on is finding people that looks like me to connect with so we can learn from each other and build new amazing stuff. So I believe, I will be able to bring some value to this conversation through digital media, film, culture, and everything in between that space.
I'm totally like ready for this. It's a conversation or a topic, I should say, that I'm definitely interested in because I want to know how certain things translate. I too operating in this media space. I think we'll touch on some pretty interesting things. But I want to talk about film school because you said that you went to film school. Where did you study film?
Oh, okay. So I went to NAFTI. It's a film school in Ghana. I think it's one of the biggest film schools in West Africa. So I studied film directing in NAFTI, and how our curriculum is. It allows us to study all the disciplines in film, from sound to editing to all that. And in your last 2 years, you major in one. So I was supposed to major in film directing my last year, right? But then I stopped before that. So I never graduated from the film school. I was like 3 years into it.
Yeah. Well, don't get hung up on that because I wanted to go to film school and it didn't even go. And I'm still working in that space anyhow. It just really depends, honestly. So I would say with media, it's one of the most unregulated avenues in terms of how you get started. There's certain career paths that you choose where it's like you have to do it in these sequence of events in order to be able to do that particular job or that trade or whatever. Media isn't like that. Media is one of those things where having the added skill set definitely helps for being able to navigate yourself around. But how you get into the business, especially if it's in the entertainment realm, there's no set way for that. So don't get hung up on that because you did something that I totally wanted to do.
Yeah, I think what film school did for me was that I already had like the skill set and the how to, but I didn't really understand the use or the utility of it. And film school gave me that utility like one dose, right? When I was in film school, within the first year, I was able to understand exactly how media fits into the whole culture space and how we influence things in our space and how everything that most of the thing that goes on is influenced by radio and TV. So I knew how to do all these things, produce all these all these pieces of content, but then I didn't know exactly what those things are really, how it's going to really be catching people and how it's going to translate into culture. I had no idea about it. It was film school that made me go like, oh, okay, this is what I think. All right. And it also gave me, the access to some the community. All right. That was my first time that I met people that actually see the world the same way that I see it. So I think that's the benefit of film school. Like it gives you the community, and also I think to some point it gives you the philosophy of the arts and how it fits into culture and things like that. But the how to, I think you have to figure it out on yourself, right? By yourself.
I think you're absolutely right. My idea and what I sort of picked up from film school and people that went, I definitely, when I was at that age, 17 going on 18, I was exploring those different avenues of like, what school I wanted to go to and everything. It's just really expensive.
Yeah.
So I never went. But what I gathered from people that I know who did go to NYU or they went to Hollywood to study film and so on, is that the best thing that you gain from that is finding your tribe, finding those group of people who are also very passionate and into the things that you're into. Because when you are just naturally gifted in a certain area, in this case, digital content, technology, media, editing, all those things, that obviously came to you naturally because you were already into it, but also it was effortless for you to just kind of be like, oh, well, I can learn this program, right? It's second nature. But when you find others who also have that gift, because trust me, it's a gift. I didn't know that growing up, me knowing how to basically look at a piece of technology, see the setup of it, take it apart, see how it works, and reassemble that thing or figure out how to fix something that was broken. I didn't know that was a skill.
Yeah. But before that you were breaking a lot of stuff.
No, I never broke anything. I fixed a lot of things. I tried things
I was
out.
breaking everything in the house. I was breaking every electronic in the house. I remember I broke like my father's PC, like 6 computers before I figure out how the whole thing works. Like I'm like I don't really take information and just consume it. I want to test it and see if it works. I'm the one. So
my favorite thing was always when something would officially break, right? Let's say you had I don't know how old you are, but let's say you had like an old VCR, like a beta tape system that actually eventually broke. It just was not working anymore. That was my favorite thing because I was like, I get to break this thing apart, right? It's like, do not throw it away because I'm gonna break it apart. I just want to see what's in there. You know what I mean? And I would look at stuff, literally look at things, and it would make sense to me immediately. I'm like, okay, obviously this is this. I started I started working in IT, and I started working with different clients and talking to people who, if you said unplug the power cable to them, they will be like, which is the power cable? What are you talking about? And it's it's stuff like that. Like, I truly feel like as an adult that the school system failed me with some of the skills that I had, because I was never in a space where that could be like cultivated or developed further, because nobody around knew that that was also something special as well. But now that I'm older, I'm just like, yo, if somebody had told me that I was doing something that was not typical, then I'd probably be much further along than I was. Or I at least would have been aware. Like you said, going to film school basically made you, it basically validated the thing that you were curious about. You know what I mean? And it gave you the option to say, this actually is a real something. And that's something I wish that I did explore, but I did not. I got into stuff in different ways.
Yeah, and
You said you go ahead. I'm
some
sorry.
film school also, like on the validation thing you said, it also validates you even in like getting you into the rooms. So there are times that when you walk into a room and then you're trying to brag about yourself, you mention, oh, I'm from Nazi, automatically the person feels like, oh, okay, they are talking to a professional or somebody that knows what they are doing. So to some point, yeah, it gives you that validation. So I think it's a good place to start, but to actually execute and make things happen, it's not the right place. I think it's a place that gives you the brand or the outlook, like you know what you're about, right? And also gives you the high level thinking about how, I mean, philosophy and all these things plays out to media. But then as to how you execute that and make those things happen, I think that one is a bit outside.
Yeah. Do you ever find that now that you're older and you're more seasoned and experienced, do you find that the things that you feel like you're being taught even at a younger age, that you have now found better ways to learn those things? What I mean is something like this. Pretty much from a small child all the way through to high school or secondary school, I always had a Spanish teacher. I always took Spanish and language lessons, right? But when I was in that setting, none of it ever made sense to me. Like, I would get it, I would learn what words were what, you could start itemizing things, but it would never get to a point where I was like, oh, this makes sense. I'm gonna, start being able to have a full conversation in Spanish. It never clicked ever. And then I got older and I found these other outlets or these other remedies for practicing a second language and fully getting it. And I was like, why didn't they just say this? do you ever come across things like that now that you are a professional in your field? Do you find that you learn new things or new skills and it's like, well, y'all should have just said that a long time ago?
A lot. Like, not even a lot of time it happens outside even the professional stuff, like in real life stuff. Like, why didn't anybody told me about this? And yeah, I sometimes I feel very bad about it. Like, told my parents and things like that. Like, why didn't they share this with you? Why wouldn't they tell you that? I mean, and even the business aspect of the whole media stuff. There's a lot of things that they don't teach you in school about how contracts are made, how things move around. And ask yourself, like, you came into this to make a living, so why did nobody told you about how you actually make your money? Like, so, I mean, there's a lot of that. But I think it's part of the process because I feel like at certain times, even if they had told you were not ready for the information. That's one thing that I realized at some point, because I remember I was working with one agency when I came out of film school. One of the reasons why I came out of film school that early was because I think I was good at what I was doing, so I had a lot of people wanting to engage me on projects. So I was working with this agency, and at the same time, I was working as a content creator for a major artist in Ghana. So I had to stop school and focus on that because I felt like I was getting more experience there. At that time, there was a lot of information around me. Like I saw all these artists, agencies doing a lot of stuff that was like in the business field of all these things. But at that time, I wasn't ready for that information. Right. So to some point, I gathered those information, but I feel that that's where there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. I had those experiences. I was gathering the material. I was, of course, storing them in my brain. But as to translate it into actionable stuff in my own life, it wasn't there yet. It was when I started trying to do my own stuff that I realized, oh, okay, I picked up this thing from here, and this is why these people are doing it like that. Oh, that's why that person was moving like that. This is why, all these people are moving like that. So I think that way, some of the information is even sitting there, but maybe it hasn't reached a point where, like, you know, you have to use it, or there's a need to pull that thing from your mental library or something and use it and make it something like own that. But I think to some point, we are not ready for the information at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that because if you're not open to it or you're not, privy to what you're hearing, it's just not ever going to make sense. So some things you do have to go through in order for it to be like, okay, now I get it. You don't have to do that with everything though, y'all. Sometimes people go through certain shit. Excuse me. Like this is like doesn't have to be just professional, but just like some people go through like relationships and stuff. They do stuff that I'm just like, you do not have to go through that in order to understand that it's not right. Like this only applies to what we're talking about right now and the like, not your toxic, husband or wife or something like that. Stop that. Okay.
Yeah. I think that those ones has been played out so many times. It's in films and it's all over the place. So I think everybody should
like by now you should realize that somebody punch you and give you a black eye is it's not right. But I'm not judging anybody. I want to switch gears here. I want to talk about your business ventures, because at this stage in your life, you have ventured off into making a name for yourself, but also, like you said, trying to introduce others to the digital world or digital media and marketing and so on, and giving them an avenue or the option or the opportunity to explore something that they may not have. What is it that you're doing in order to achieve that? And just tell us about that a little bit.
So it's just me trying to do something for maybe the 19, 21-year-old myself that wanted to explore these places. So first, we have a platform called Creators. And this platform allows young people in Ghana, especially in Accra, to have...
Say that again. You said you have a platform, what?
A platform called Creators. So the platform is called Creators, KRATOR. And, this platform allows young people in Accra to, engage or explore digital media, right? What we do is we partner with creators like yourself and other industry experts to bring actionable knowledge to these young people that they can start using tomorrow. So it's not like the typical school platform, which didn't work for me. It's more of like mentorship platform. So you sign up on the platform, you get a mentor that you work with for time to learn whatever space that works for you. We also have like video courses and all that. And access on demand content to learn what they want to learn. And then what we do is we also give them like career opportunities. So we have like people that we work with, partners, clients that we work with. So we give access to these young people to work with those clients and learn real life experiences, and then they can build up from there. So that's how we run it.
How long have you been doing the creative thing? When did you first start it, or how did you start that? Not even
I think
how.
that
What motivated you to go through with something like that? That's the question. That's what I want to ask.
so when I was in film school, I realized that a lot of my friends had like amazing projects. You might be around and then one person will come up with this amazing script or this concept that we should run this show or we should like this will look good on TV. Or everybody was creative at that time, so we had like a lot of ideas. But the school platform didn't have any tools for us to make those ideas, like turn those ideas into actionable stuff that we actually work on, right? So apart from what the curriculum allowed us to do, which was very slow, maybe one project a year, we weren't doing so much. And these were the time that social media was rising. So it wasn't like make one short film for the entire year, right? But you have friends who are not even in film school making like 4 or 5 YouTube videos a week. So these young people wanted to also, keep up with YouTube and all these things, but there wasn't anything like that. So I've always had a dream of having a platform for young people to just work in, create content, and publish it. So that has always been my thing. So right after film school, some people just gravitated towards me, asking me how to. They want to learn photography. They want to learn this. They want to learn that. They were peers, some were family and stuff like that. Plus, I started mentoring other people just like that. It wasn't like something that was planned out, but people started coming towards me to learn some of these things, like graphic design here, editing there, and the photography there, and stuff like that. So it got to a point I realized all the people around me that helped me with my work are all like people that I've mentored, and they know my style, they know how I move, they know how like do things. So I realized, okay, maybe where I bring most value is not even producing stuff myself, but actually helping other people also, get their thing. And then it was a new experience for me to explore because I knew how to do it in my own way, but to do it at a mass scale, I needed to find like proper processes and better ways of doing it. And it was a new way to explore, like a new area to explore. Trying to figure out like LMS, figure out how to build a platform that, you can learn on that and live on demand video. Record video tutorial, get myself in front of a camera for the very first time. Like, I was doing all this stuff, but I wasn't doing it on camera. So making that shift from even behind the camera to coming in front of the camera and doing things like that, this was like a whole different experience that I had to go through. So it was an amazing experience.
I'm already proud. I'm already proud. So how do you think we would go about creating a platform similar to what you have, but what's the word I would use? Blending it, sort of cross promoting the thing. Like how do we get young Black creatives in America and young Black creatives in Ghana to start to collaborate more or have a meeting of the minds and create something, even more special? How do we connect those two to you? Because I'm sure you've worked with people in other places, right? So what was that experience like for you? But also, how do you think we get that to grow more and continue to be like a thing?
I think now in 2022 we have like viral tools. Tools are now not a problem. Technology is not a problem. And I'm not saying that every young person in Ghana and Africa have access to good internet and laptops and things like that. But that is not an issue. If you have a smartphone that has internet on it, we are ready to go, right? So tools are not a problem now. But I believe it's the culture. It's the way we think and the way we come together. Because like you told me earlier before this conversation, you had this culture shock when you came here. I mean, two opposing sides, like putting a square pole in a round in a round hole, a square pipe in a round pole, something like.
Don't even get me started yet. We'll get into that, but woo wee.
Yeah. I think that's where it goes on. But then that's what we already started. It's having this type of conversations, and we opening like starting new conversations like this, and then pushing it forward, right? So on the technology side, I don't think we have issues as young people. We already know the tools that we have; they are viral. We can just leverage them and make things happen. But I think what we really need to work on is trying to sync our minds and be on the same page and understand that we have like same we have the same goals and the same ambitions, so we can work together. Because I feel like there's a lot of this crab in the barrel thing. I don't know how it is in the US, but we have that issue here. So competition and things like that. So I think we come into understand that we need to coexist and build all these platforms and all these things that support each other and build a bigger platform is what we need to look at.
That you saying that brings to my attention that I want to say when I arrived to Ghana, first of all, going to any part of Africa as a Black American is a whole ordeal. Okay, we make it a whole thing. Trust me. And what I saw when I was really in Ghana and really like absorbing everything was abundance, right? I saw a lot of talent. I saw a lot of people who had skill sets that I know for a fact these American kids don't have. The difference is finding value in each other. I think that to me is the thing that will begin to help bridge building. Is that if we value one another. So if you have someone who is an editor and they say, oh, well, I have a chance to work with someone abroad, and they are valuing just the fact that, oh, this is just me getting to work with an American individual who, just kind of have something to their resume. That's one thing. But when you truly value another, let me call it a cousin culture. Let me put it that way. When you see like, okay, not only is this someone that's abroad, but this is also someone I can develop and grow with, then I think that's when things really they come together, but they come together in a much better and more profound manner. Because a lot of Americans have their mind made up about a lot of African countries. You know what I mean? This is across the board because there's ignorance, right? There's a lack of education. And so until they a lot of times take the journey that I did to visit a place, experience the people, see everything in real time, they may not even be aware of that abundance. So the crabs in a barrel mentality exist here too. Basically, when you were describing that, you were describing Atlanta. But I also see that a lot of times in Black Hollywood, right? Everybody, once you are in Black Hollywood, once you are in the industry, and whether it's music, film, whichever, you are literally like 1 degree of separation from you and somebody else. So that's me saying if I work, you know, you ever heard of the five degrees of separation thing, right? 5 degrees of separation. No, 5 degrees of separation is this. Pretty much for every person, for one person, there are literally about 5 different people that you can go through to basically have a common person that you let me explain this way. If I if I worked with a photographer who worked with Beyonce, right? Then for sure, so you would have the photographer, then you would have Beyonce, right? That's already that's 2 degrees there. So Beyonce knows Jay-Z,
Yeah.
and Jay-Z knows Blue Ivy. And Blue Ivy, everybody knows her, right? But basically, you start to, you can basically count down how many people it takes to get to Beyonce's mom.
Oh, okay.
For example, right? So that's 5 people there. For me, knowing the photographer who she works with, knows her husband, knows her kid, and that's the kid's grandmother. So you get to that. That's the idea of the 5 degrees of separation. So with you and I, there's literally only like 1 degree between us at this point, right? And we're this far apart. So we have a mutual friend, and now we know each other. And there's literally like basically there's a I don't know if it's a literal science, but there's the idea that there's five people can get you to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know how I got into that.
Yeah,
I think how did we get there?
I think it's a cool thing. You were telling us about telling me like the Black Hollywood thing, and then there is a 5 degree thing. I think
I was saying what at first now? What was I saying? How did we get there? Yeah. It doesn't matter. We're gonna move on because I don't know. That's my ADD kicking in there. Woo! But I think I was making the point that, and this could be wrong, but I think I was making the point that oh wait, got it. Crabs in a barrel. Mm-hmm. Us, Black Hollywood being as small as it is, but producing so many people who are well off, multimillionaires, billionaires, even, right? In that industry, there's a lot of people with a lot of power. Yet, you will find that there's a lot of hoarding of information. There's a lot of basically there's this mentality that people do not feel like there's enough to go around. Like I said, when I went to experience Ghana and I saw what was there, saw the people that were there, I saw opportunity, I saw abundance in that. But if you are in Ghana and you're just casually living your life and you happen to have a skill set, it goes back to going to film school. You don't know that you have something that's special until somebody shows you that it's something that's special and something that you can live off of. Because if we're hoarding information, if we're keeping things to ourselves, if I know of a job opportunity that I know you're qualified for, right? Not only are you qualified for it, it's happening in your city. I should be able to say, hey, Oak, there's this job opportunity. You want to go and get that? And it should be no big deal. But you'll have people who will not only know of the opportunity, know that you are qualified. They know that you are five kilometers away from that place. You can go immediately, right? But what they'll do is they will accept the job, say they can do it, whether they're qualified or not. They will go through the hassle of traveling to go to the job, maybe traveling several countries over to get to the job, to do the gig, and do all these things when they could have just said, "Hey, brother, go and pick this up because you got it," and there'll be no harm, no foul, because you know that there's also another job coming up that you will be able to have too.
And no, I think it's this zero sum mentality of like, things are limited and people don't believe in abundance, and people also don't, opportunity cost and things like that. Because if you say yes to one thing, you say no to another thing, right? So if it is something that you don't have like a process, you are not really good at it, and you say yes to it, the struggle and then the cost of trying to work on that, and I mean losing all your profits is high. Than just giving it to someone that will just run through like butter. And then
Yeah, because it should be like, oh, hey, here's a job, oh, go do that, and then you hear something later. It may not be immediately. It could be a year later, and you say, "Hey, I heard of something. Go check this out because I can't do it." You know what I mean? And it will just kind of be an even trade. That's what we have to get to. I feel.
I think here, for instance, I can't speak to America, but I think it goes back to colonization and the way we've been like, because Africa and Ghana, for instance, has like their freedom and all that. But then we were never decolonized. So all these things were done. There were like systemic oppression. There was all these tools and psychological tools that white folks use to make sure they can control you and keep you in the dark spaces. And then when you get these people out, nothing was done actively. There was no action done to reverse that. All right, to unlearn that. There was none of that process. And that process has been passed down over time, over time, over time, over time, over time. And I see a lot of that thing because like when it comes to, let's say, business and leadership and all these spaces, you can clearly see how much like we are so different from the white people. All right, like they don't want to make so much effort. Like they think in zero sum. They feel like things are limited. They don't want to go so much for so much. Like they don't go to hard on stuff. They just want to make some few points and then they can, So it's weird. Like it's just weird. I don't know how to put it. Like it's so weird.
No, I get it. I mean, it's a very real thing that needs to be addressed. If we understand why we have like you said, the crabs in a barrel mentality, then we can understand how to get out of that.
Yeah.
Right.
And this conversation, I can't speak so much to it because I always feel like we should have like, a young, an old school, new school kind of conversation where we bring some old folks into this kind of conversation, this particular topic, right? So like we have that kind of convo. I've always wanted to have like something like that where it's like a new school, old school vibe, put them on public TV to discuss this very thing. Why is that? Why do they move like that?
I feel like there was a several generations back, not even that many, maybe like two, that dropped the ball. When there were massive movements in the 60s and 70s of Black people finding their own lane and being proud to be themselves. And in the 60s, you had the whole thing going like with Malcolm X, right? And there are this is the tie-ins because I mean, well, before I even get into that, how much do you know about that sort of era, that civil rights movement, Malcolm X situation?
Yeah, I think I've watched a couple of documentaries.
Okay, then you know. You watch one or two documentaries and you got it. But there's literally photographs and letters where I forget what year it was. I want to say maybe like 63, somewhere around there, where Malcolm got to go and visit Ghana, right? And he's writing letters to his wife, and someone that's you can find him online on Google Images, I'm sure. And he's writing letters to his wife, and he's talking about his experiences there and meeting people, and he's taking photos with the locals and things like this. Basically, doing exactly what we said, building a bridge there. Only his movement was more focused on human rights and Black people having ownership over, things for themselves, right? Having their own ecosystem, their own sustainability, and so on. And that was, like I said, 2-3 generations ago. And you see what they let happen to him. So there were a lot of there were a lot of movements, a lot of good things that were happening that could have benefited us. You go back to even before Malcolm X, you go back to Marcus Garvey. You go forward from that. And there were a lot of people who were trying to bring us together. So now it's a matter of how we address that on the digital spectrum. I know, like I said, when I visited Ghana, I saw abundance. I saw opportunities. I saw people that you could definitely go and invest in and give an opportunity to, and change the trajectory of their life, because they, maybe they're a street dancer, for example, right? But they are like really fucking good, really fucking good at this, right? But they're just doing it for like little tips. Maybe they'll get a few tips for the day, and they'll buy dinner, something. But how do you build a bridge kin to like building up a connection that people like Marcus Garvey wanted to, that people like Malcolm X wanted to, that people like Martin Luther King wanted to? How do you do that in today's space, as this digital space where we now have access to each other? You know what I mean? We like right now, you and I are talking to each other. How do we take this from here to being something that's tangible? How does someone like myself, knowing that I'm in a position that I could afford to invest in a place like Ghana and afford to invest in people, how do we do that without perverting? I think that's a good one. That's a good word. How do we invest in the motherland, in this case, specifically Ghana, since this is where you are, without perverting the culture or without disregarding the culture that already exists? Because you don't want to go somewhere and just like dilute it. And I think we see that with a lot of corporations, with a lot of colonizers. People will come in and they will start businesses. They will open factories. They will have all these things. To the common person, it just seems like, oh, these are going to be job opportunities for us. So they'll embrace it openly without thinking about future consequences, without considering how that's affecting a local village, right, in a rural area. They're just going to come and build something and not care what the effects are 20 years down the line for those people. How does someone like me who is interested in connecting in that way go and take the step to start building with other people? So if you're a digital content creator, and I was like, oh, I need digital content from the continent, I need to go and have stuff made. What's the trajectory in your own point of view?
So I think that with reference to Malcolm X making an attempt and all these people that had this same intent, I think that the mistake or the thing that I didn't realize that it did was education and actually bridging the gap. I think oftentimes what happens is we think that because our intentions are good, things are supposed to just work, or because we have good intention for other people, they should also want that same thing for themselves. And one thing that I learned through design is that it's not even about what you think is good for the clients or the people you are designing for. It's about you understanding who those people are and what's going to work with them. So I think that in our context, it's more of like a design something. We are designing something that comes. We are building a solution that would work. All right. So I think the first step to that is cultural exchange. These two parts should be able to like come together and exchange their culture in the sense that I should be able to understand your interest and you should understand my interest. And once that there is no friction in those things, in those two stuff, I think now when we're building something, we're designing something, it's going to be something that works for both parties. But if it is more of like, what you spoke about earlier with other people, like white people coming in here to do all this stuff, they come in and they superimpose their designs on you. They wouldn't take time to understand why Muslims or Afghans or any other group of people do what they do. They'll just go like, oh, okay, so this is what you need. I'm gonna just slap the solution there. Just figure out how to use it. And normally that's not how the human being works. It's not about in Africa or anywhere on the planet. That's not how the human being works. They have their own ways of doing stuff. So I think it's we just being able to continuously educate each other about our cultures. So one, I believe that the center of the platform should be around education and information transfer. We should have an ongoing flow of information between those two ends that we get to understand, oh, okay, this is why Ghanaians behave this way. Oh, this is how Americans behave that way. This is how these people are psyched this way. This is how these people are psyched that way. So then it makes the engagement more, it comes from a more place of understanding, all right, than, oh, okay, I don't know why this one behaving that way. Why didn't he buy into this solution? Like, why didn't this thing work? So I think it has to be something that is more inclusive. It has to be there should be a deeper connection. And each side's interest should come into play. And then from there, it's just tech. It's just tech. But I believe that right now the tech is not the issue because tech now is viral. Like we have too much to like. That's how I put it. So I think we should like have that intent of bridging the gap by bridging it from the core of the people. What we really are understanding both ends and then doing that through education. So I think everything should be centered around education. But I mean, what we're doing, there's like a million way of monetizing it and turning it into a business, like the whole business module around all these things like podcasts, YouTube, all these things. So that can be put together to build like an ecosystem that loops, reinforce itself, generate more money, things in education. I think that is possible.
I would add to that, but I feel like we're gonna get into some really deep shit, and we'll be chipping away at it like crazy. So I feel like we're gonna go into a part two of the situation here. I'm enjoying this conversation. I really am, and I'm glad to be connecting with you. So we'll stop here and we'll pick it up for the second half of things. So, while we're doing this, go ahead and let the people listening, watching, whichever we are doing, let them know where they can find you, follow you, and support your ventures.
Okay, so I'm Ofori Ankah Kofi on LinkedIn and Facebook. On the Instagram at OAK360, OAK_360. Same on TikTok. I've been active on TikTok for a while now. So that's where you can find me. And our platform is called Creators, creators.com, KR8TOR.com. So you can find us there. You get access to all the information that you need on us.
All right, I like it. I like it. I'll definitely put all that information in the show notes so that you all can check out the links, click them directly, and see what Ofori is up to. And of course, you know how you can keep up with us. That's Ubiquitous Blacks. Basically, you go on to your search engine of choice. You type in Ubiquitous Blacks podcast, whatever you want to type in. If you don't spell it right, okay, Google will say, "Did you mean to say this?" Click that. And after you click that, you'll find us. Okay. You can email us ubiquitousblacks@gmail.com. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, be sure to leave a 5-star review. If you are going to leave anything less than 5 stars, go on somewhere. Do not click the button. Close it. Go away. We don't want that. 5 stars only. Leave a well-written review. And at some point, I'm going to do a reading of all these reviews and emails that I get. And we'll turn that into an episode in and of itself. But I do want to thank you for participating in this first part. And we will be back for a part 2. So stay tuned.